Hello and welcome to Movies for Dumb Guys. I'm your dumb guy host, Joe Johnson, and as usual, I am joined by Ryan Sharp.
You call me Dr. Jones, lady.
And Tim Williams.
We're going to need a bigger boat.
And we are going to be celebrating the filmography of Steven Spielberg today, who, not so coincidentally, had his latest movie hit theaters recently called Ready Player One. I have had a chance to see it. Have you guys both had a chance to see Ready Player One?
Indeed.
Yes, I just saw it yesterday. Fresh in my mind.
All right, let's play a little bit of the trailer before we start our discussion.
Come with me.
This is the Oasis.
You'll be
It's a place where the limits of reality are your own imagination.
all of your imagination.
People come to the Oasis for all the things they can do, but they stay because of all the things they can be.
And you'll see.
I'm here talking to all of you now because our future's being threatened.
We'll begin
I just came here to escape,
the spin.
but I found something much bigger than myself. I found my friends.
All right, so correct me if I'm wrong, but
You're wrong.
this is Steven Spielberg's first foray into fantasy in a long time. I want to say since Jurassic Park. Are you guys on board with me? Well, no, he did.
well,
he did
I mean,
AI.
He did Adventures of Tintin. He did...
Was Tintin a fantasy?
Yeah.
I've never saw
Well,
that one.
yeah, it was CGI. BFG, which I've never seen, but I mean, that
Oh,
was
yeah, that's
another CGI
2016,
thingy.
Yeah. I'm kind of sad to say that I haven't seen a lot of his recent stuff outside of the historic period pieces that he's been doing. But let's talk about Ready Player One. I didn't think, as far as storytelling goes, I didn't think it was very groundbreaking. I don't think there's anything in there that we haven't really seen before. For me, the fun aspect of watching Ready Player One was the Easter eggs, looking for things in the background, looking for the 80s movie references. And my God, there were a lot of them. I visited one website that listed over 100 Easter eggs that are in the film, and they didn't even include some of the ones that I saw. So there's more than 100 little Easter eggs hidden throughout the film. I spotted quite a few of them. I knew about a lot of them before I even saw the film. And I guess at this point I should offer up our disclaimer that there may be some spoilers during our discussion, but we'll try not to ruin too many major plot points. But
I'm ruining them all.
just watching the trailers, you got to know that this thing is just chock full of 80s references from a lot of the movies we all love and grew up with. So, Ryan, you saw the movie. What was your take on it? What was your thought as you walked away from it?
Well, I went into this purposely not looking at websites and reviews and all that stuff. I wanted just an empty slate, and I walked away pretty happy. I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. I really did like the references, the 80 references, and I thought the cast of characters was a good ensemble of people.
Interesting that they were mostly unknowns. I thought that
Yeah.
was an interesting choice.
But it worked because that kind of is what the whole Oasis is about, right? You can be anybody and you are nobody or whatever, So yeah, I think that worked. A couple of things that I nitpick here and there about it, but all forgivable, I think. Overall, I really enjoyed it.
It's kind of a mix of Avatar, The Matrix,
Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka. You heard the song play in the clip from the trailer I just played. So like I said, there's nothing new or groundbreaking in the movie other than the visual effects and things like that. But overall, I thought it was entertaining. Tim, what was your take on it?
Like Ryan, I tried to remain as spoiler free as possible. I knew that there was going to be a lot of characters in it, obviously. I kind of have a rule. It's not really a rule, but it's just kind of, I thought it was going to be more about video games. And it really ended up being more, to me anyway, about almost a love letter to 80s music and 80s movies more so than
Yeah, the soundtrack was pretty cool
yeah,
too.
more so than the video game aspect of it. Um,
Even though I think gamers will get a lot out of it too. I
oh,
mean,
definitely,
there
definitely.
gamers picked up on things I didn't pick up on.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're a gamer, I mean, there's so many things in there. If you're a horror fan, there's some good stuff in there. If you are a kaiju fan like myself, there was some huge stuff in there that I was not expecting at all. So yeah, I really liked it. I ended up liking it a lot.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. The storyline wasn't the best, but there was just so many visual things in it, and I mean, just Easter egg overload, obviously. Um, yeah, I really liked it.
Were either one of you familiar with the book at all?
No.
Yeah, me neither. And I heard that the movie takes some liberties.
As always. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, I mean, we're talking like the car race in the movie did not exist in the book. So Steven Spielberg decided to add some visuals that probably wouldn't have come across as well in the book that were created strictly for the film, and I thought that worked. And the car race, I think, was my favorite part. I mean, it was so cool seeing Mad Max's V8 Interceptor. The Batmobile was featured prominently from the '66 TV series. If you looked in the background, there's Christine. There's the A-Team van, Mach 5 from
See,
Speed
I'm gonna
Racer.
have to see it again
Incredible.
because I really wasn't paying attention to like all the background stuff
mm-mm.
so much this time. I mean, I caught a lot of things, but I didn't really catch any of that.
And I mean, and then of course there
few
was
of
the
them, but
Back to the Future DeLorean, which the main character
right.
drove, and that was really cool to see the DeLorean used as a car in a film again after the Back to the Future trilogy. So I really got a pleasant surprise from seeing that featured so prominently in the film.
I liked it a lot. I told Tim this earlier, I hated the fact that he drove most of the film with the door open.
Hmm.
I don't know why that bothered me, but
Yeah.
I didn't even
it-
notice it.
it
until
really,
you
like,
mentioned
for
it.
some reason, like, just I picked it out and I'm like, shut the door.
It's probably a
So-
cinematic thing where they had to see the character in the car. I guess
Right.
I don't know.
Like Tobey Maguire taking his mask off the whole time in Spider-Man.
Right.
Right.
Now, so Steven Spielberg said that he made a conscious decision not to include his movies in this, and which kind of surprises me, even though you could argue that the T-Rex is from Jurassic Park, which he directed. What do you think of his decision not to include Indiana Jones or E.T. or whatever? It's a bit of a surprise to me.
Maybe it's just being humble a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what are you patting yourself on the back? Like, look at me. Look, yeah, I did ET.
I don't know, but
Yeah, that's
his
probably
movies
what
were
you
such an
wanted to avoid.
iconic part of the '80s, though, and this was a tribute to the '80s.
Well,
It
but he
would have
put-
been nice to see a couple Spielberg references
You
in
put
there.
the DeLorean in it.
Yeah, well, he executive produced Back to the Future, but
Well, Optimus
Yeah.
Prime was in it too. I mean, if you really want to nitpick, I mean, Optimus Prime, and he
Yeah.
was the executive producer on Transformers, and yeah, even though the T-Rex wasn't exactly the same as the T-Rex, that's the T-Rex.
I guess
yeah.
where would you throw in Indiana Jones or
probably
ET?
in the big epic fight. Well, I don't know about E.T., but Indiana Jones would have fit right in the big epic fight scene at the end. Yeah, as far as E.T., I don't know. A lot of these movie references were just kind of stationary in the background. Like when they went into H's shop where he was building the Iron Giant and stuff. I didn't even realize this upon the first watching. I saw this online later, but in the background there was the Ferris Bueller Ferrari just sitting in the background,
Oh,
and hanging from the ceiling was the Colonial Viper from Battlestar Galactica. So these things didn't even necessarily have to be active parts in the story. They were just kind of
Yeah.
background decoration.
yeah. I mean, there was like so many things in there. Really, did he need to? Did he really
Yeah.
need to put his own stuff in there?
I think it would
mean,
have been fun to look for that.
I
Stuff.
mean, they could have probably put the whip in like a 50 Shades room or something.
Exactly.
Going back to what you were saying, and I talked to Ryan about this a little bit before. I was talking to my niece today, who that's her favorite book, and so I was asking her a couple things about certain characters and stuff if they were actually in the book. The Overlook, not in the book.
Mhm.
It was actually she said it was Monty Python and War Games. during that whole
Huh.
scene in the book.
So the Overlook, that's the Shining reference where they
Yeah.
recreated just about every detail from
Yeah.
the movie. It was incredible.
So although she did say that was her favorite part of the movie, that Shining
Yeah.
part of it, but yeah, that part was cool. That just came out of left field when I was watching it. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But
Did you pick up the Monty Python reference?
possibly.
Is the holy hand grenade?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that was from Monty Python.
yeah. So I was thinking maybe that was like his tribute to Kubrick, Spielberg's tribute to Kubrick, because he let him finish AI.
Mhm.
Possibly. When I was watching it, that's what I was thinking anyway. That I didn't know that it wasn't in the book at the time, but I was thinking, maybe that's why he wanted to do it, to pay homage to Kubrick.
Yeah. I was surprised that pundits predicted that this movie wasn't going to perform very well, and it really surprised me. I mean, number one, it's a Spielberg movie, and number two, I mean, I thought the trailers looked fantastic. Like, I was like, I gotta see this, and I guess it outperformed expectations, even though I still, I mean, you would think a Spielberg movie of this caliber would be like $100 million opening weekend, but it was like what, in the 50s, low 50s, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Why were the expectations so low?
I don't know, but I didn't really. I disagree with you. I don't really think that the trailers really did the movie justice.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Ah,
I don't
I
think
got
so.
excited
I
when I
think they
saw 'em.
could have thrown like a couple. I mean, from the way the trailers looked, it just looked like that there was going to be all these characters, maybe just in the background cameo appearances. If I would have known, I mean, I'm glad I didn't, but if I would have known that like some of my favorite like movie characters were going to have such big roles in it,
Yeah.
it would have been different.
Yeah. And then with all the little hidden Easter eggs in the background, I mean, people like me are going to go have to see this movie multiple times because I want to go back and see what I missed and look for things in the background. So I'm
For
hoping
sure.
this movie has legs.
I definitely see it again, just to, now that I know what's happening, to kind of more, focus on the other things that's going on. I honestly didn't see a whole bunch of, promotion for this movie. I think that had a part in, the opening. I only saw the trailer a couple times, and I've heard no buzz or seen no buzz about it. The most I've gotten is from you, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I was in LA recently, and I thought there was a really cool promotional campaign that they did. I was walking down the street where, you know how like when a site's under construction, they have like plywood or whatever. And all along that construction fence were posters from Ready Player One, but each one was done in the style of a movie that they paid homage to in the film. Like there was a Back to the Future style poster and a Iron Giant style poster. And man, I just stood there and stared at him. I'm like, that's really awesome. Really played up that 80s tribute thing.
I do have to say, it really sucked having to watch the Iron Giant die again.
Yeah, I know. I was like, no, don't do that. But then he
Did
kind of
did you
gave
cry,
that-
Joe?
Yeah,
Did you
he-
cry?
No, but
He
he
did
gave
the
the Terminator
Terminator
thumbs up, which
Yeah.
made me laugh out loud.
Me
So-
too. I
that-
laughed out
that-
loud
that was,
also.
That was
Yeah.
cool. That was cool, but I was like, well, why? Why
Yeah.
do you gotta do that to him again? I did think at one point he was gonna like pull the Superman thing out though. and,
Oh,
like,
that would have been cool. Yeah, yeah, I loved all those little tributes. So, how would you rank Ready Player One among Spielberg's movies? Near the top, in the middle, toward the bottom. Ryan, where does it rank among Spielberg's work?
This is tough. That's a tough question. I would say it's middle to lower.
Did you like
middle.
it better than his recent historical epics that he's done?
Yeah, it's the reason I say that it's in the middle or even a little bit below though is because just some of the other things that he's done have been so impactful and
Oh,
so groundbreaking and stood the test of time, and this was more maybe a little more playful, more juvenile. Not that that's a bad thing, but compared to some of his other work, if you go the Oscar route, the other stuff's going to get nominated. This is going to be like, oh, that was cute.
Yeah, I love his historical stuff, but this movie, like his past fantasy epics, this movie I felt like it tapped into my brain. I mean, as I'm watching the movie, I felt like I was in my apartment. Like all the stuff I have in my apartment was on the screen, and I felt like he somehow had been reading my mind or something because
No.
he included a lot of stuff that I find iconic and that I have in my home.
Joe's Apartment's a different movie.
No, that's different. That's cockroaches. Tim, where does this movie rank among Steven Spielberg movies?
Yeah, I would say it's probably my favorite movie but I haven't seen all of them. But it's probably my favorite movie of his since I'd say maybe Saving Private Ryan or AI or Minority Report.
Yeah.
So back in the early 2000s.
Now, I have a list here of movies that Steven Spielberg either directed or executive produced. And when I look at the first, 20 or so movies on this list, I've seen most of them. Like for me, growing up, a Spielberg movie was an event.
It was. I was thinking about that too. It was like that was just it didn't matter. You went and saw it.
Yeah. Now, it all started for me with Jaws. I have very vivid memories of sitting in a theater with a live audience, popcorn in my hands, and I remember moments in Jaws where my popcorn went flying, and I remember hearing the audience screaming, and Jaws is kind of where it all began for me. What kind of impact did Jaws have on you guys? I mean, you guys probably didn't see it in the theater when it came out, but was Jaws significant for you guys?
Well, I was -2 when Jaws came out, so definitely missed that one. So I didn't see it until later on in life, and no, it wasn't impactful for me like that. I thought it was cool. I thought the shark was cool. I thought the way that they blew him up was cool, but I didn't get much out of it watching it as a small child.
Tim?
Yeah, I would have only been 3 when it came out. So obviously I would not have been allowed to go see that. I remember my sister being like really freaked out just from the commercials and everything, and we had a pool. So there, she was like even scared to go in the pool at one point just from the commercials of Jaws. Or she might have seen it. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't see it probably till years later when it was on cable.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was good, but yeah, I mean it's just different. If I would have seen it at the theater, it probably would have had a bigger impact on me. And I mean, great movie, but just not the same as the other Spielberg movies that I was able to
Yeah.
see at the theater.
Close Encounters came out in 1977, same year as Star Wars. If I remember correctly, Star Wars came out first and Close Encounters followed. Where Star Wars kind of took that swashbuckling sci-fi epic. Close Encounters played it almost as a documentary. I mean, it had sort of this realistic feel to it. And as a 11-year-old at the time watching this movie, I was just in awe, and it made me really think about aliens visiting our world. And Close Encounters just blew me away as a kid. What about you guys? Did you guys see Close Encounters, and what did you think of the movie?
I've never seen it.
You've never seen Close Encounters?
No.
That shocks the heck out of me.
I mean,
Add that to our film
it's old.
viewing. Yeah. But it was a milestone when it came out. It was just huge when it came out.
That's when I came out, though.
Yeah.
Like birth, not that there's anything wrong with that.
No. Tim, what did Close Encounters have any impact
I
on
was
it?
5, and I think I saw it probably the first time when they showed it on regular TV.
Mhm.
And I liked it, but in my mind, nothing could compare to Star Wars at that time. I was like,
Right.
why couldn't this be more like Star Wars?
Yeah, I
Uh,
think it might have suffered from being in the shadow of Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a little bit older, I probably would have, had a bigger impact on me. But
Yeah.
it didn't.
1979, he directed 1941, which most people consider a huge flop. Even though I think it's a underrated comedy. At this point, I'm 13 years old. It made me laugh. I really enjoyed 1941, and I was really surprised at the negative reaction that it got. But then he redeems himself in 1981 with Raiders of the Lost Ark. Again, this is another vivid memory I have of seeing a movie in the theater. And part of the reason I have such a vivid memory is my mom used to take us to the dollar show. And I remember walking in, walking in the middle of the movie, and she sat us down, and we watched Raiders of the Lost Ark from the middle to the end, and then we stayed and watched the beginning to the middle. So the first time I saw Raiders,
So your
I
mom was
saw
the
it
original
backwards.
Quentin Tarantino.
Right. Yeah, we saw it like Pulp Fiction out of sequence. But yeah, we were that family that would come wandering in the middle of a movie, and I could just hear my mom's voice going, "You go sit over there." And yeah, we probably annoyed a bunch of people, but my God, did Raiders have an impact on me. Today, I could easily say it's my second favorite movie of all time behind Star Wars. Definitely one of the greatest movies ever made. It was unlike anything I had seen as a kid before that. Ryan, what impact did Raiders have on you?
Well, 1981, I never saw it. No, I'm kidding.
I'll leap over this table.
No, I probably, I don't know when I actually saw it. I didn't see it when it came out. But it definitely, once I did started to watch it, it definitely was a thing. And I definitely wanted to be Indiana Jones. And I definitely probably tried some stuff at a young age that I probably shouldn't have. Yeah, it was, he was iconic. And, I like his little snarky, schwarmy attitude that he had. And
The amazing thing about Harrison Ford's performance in Raiders of the Lost Ark is so many actors, when they play an epic role like Han Solo, they say, "Oh, I'm typecast. I can never play another character in another movie because everyone says I'm Han Solo." But then he nails Indiana Jones, and then he continued to do that throughout his career, making people not pigeonhole him as a character. He played numerous characters and owned all of those roles. And so I get a little angry when an actor says, "Oh, I'll always forever be remembered as so and so." Harrison Ford did not let that bother him, and he became Han Solo. He became Indiana Jones. So, Tim, what impact did Raiders have on you?
I liked it, but again, I mean, amazing movie. I loved it when it first came out, but again, it was no Star Wars when I was a kid.
all right,
One
we
track
get
mind.
it.
Yeah,
Talk about pigeonhole over
It's,
here.
yeah. I mean, that's just the way it was when I was a kid. It was, I mean, I liked it, but it didn't prompt me to go seek out the action figures or anything like that. It was like I saw it and I moved on.
I love the real world stunts. Like today, all that stuff would be CGI, and that's what's so great about these movies that were made at this time is they were all real world stunts and effects and makeup. The actors on the set saw this stuff right in front of them. And Raiders of the Lost Ark, again, I think one of the greatest movies ever made.
And it's still entertaining today, so it held the test of time. It's still
Yeah.
really super popular attraction at Disney, and every time I go there, I have to get in line and watch that. I think it's amazing. And even my kid, right, Ethan is he loves it. He watched the movies. He loved it at Disney. He plays the video games, the Lego Indiana Jones, so he knows the whole saga from that. So it definitely stood the test of time.
And when you think about the greatest movie moments of all time, there are moments in that movie, like near the beginning of the movie, spoiler alert, when he's getting chased by the giant boulder. Now, that scene only lasts on screen for a minute, if that. It might be shorter than that, but it's one of the most iconic visuals in movie history of him
Yes.
dodging this boulder.
Yes,
And
that
so
whole
it's those
escape
moments.
scene. I mean, yeah, that specifically, but that whole escape scene, I remember just being like, wow.
Yeah.
And it gets replicated in other things all the time.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
this movie's been parodied and spoofed, and the moment where he takes the bag of sand and he tries to replace the idol with the bag of sand. I mean, so many incredible moments add up to this amazing film.
What it was Raiders that he that guy was like swirling the sword around and he just pulls out the gun and shoots
Yeah,
him,
yeah.
right?
The story behind that is Harrison Ford was sick that day, and they needed to shoot the scene, and there was supposed to be like a big choreographed fight scene, and Harrison's like, I'm not into it today, so he just shot the guy, and they said, "All right, cut."
I
That
think-
was like one of the greatest movie moments of all time.
I still
Exactly.
think it's hilarious. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So
Going back to the typecast thing, though, you don't. I mean, you were kind of making it sound like it was the actor that thinks that. I mean, wouldn't that be more like let's take Mark Hamill for instance?
mhm.
Wouldn't that be more like casting agency or the casting not wanting to cast him as that because they thought that maybe he would that's how people would see him through the whole movie?
I think it's an excuse that actors come up with, if they can't find work and then they say, oh, I can't find work because everyone thinks of me as Luke Skywalker. I call BS on that. I think that a talented actor can overcome any role and get that next
Well, he
role.
did do Corvette Summer.
Right.
Let's not forget.
That's true. But no, I just don't buy into the excuse that people get typecast. I think maybe it's a statement on your acting abilities, but Harrison Ford has transcended that.
Ooh, Mark Hamill, you need some aloe because that was a sick burn.
All right. So then the next year after Raiders of the Lost Ark, little movie called E.T. comes out. I believe this was written by Steven Spielberg, I think. And or no, he wrote Close Encounters. I don't think he wrote E.T., but he directed E.T. And again, one of the amazing things that Steven Spielberg's able to get out of his actors, especially these child actors, E.T. I think is one of the most well acted child performer movies. I don't think that's a good sentence there, but the child actors knocked it out of the park in E.T. It was some of the most phenomenal youth performances I've ever seen in a movie. And they're acting with these, this puppet, this person in a suit sort of a thing. And I think that's what makes E.T. so timeless was the performances of the actors. And then, of course, if we were to ever do a movies for dumb guys, top movies that made me cry, E.T. would be right at the top of the list. And here's my story with E.T. My sisters and my cousins had gone to see E.T. without me. And after seeing it, they said, Joe, you have to see this movie. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll go see it. So I'll never forget this moment sitting in the theater, gets to the scene where E.T. starts to get sickly. And then Elliot goes looking for him and he finds him in the drainage ditch or whatever. And I'll never forget looking over to my sisters and my cousins, and they're all leaning forward, staring at me, just pointing and laughing as tears just streamed down my cheeks. Man, did E.T. make me cry. And again, E.T., in my opinion, is one of the greatest movies ever made. Definitely one of my top movies of all time. Easily my top 10 movies of all time. Ryan, what are your memories of E.T.?
So I don't know if it made my top 10 or it was as impactful as it was to you. Side note, the writer was actually Melissa Matheson.
Oh, okay. Thanks for checking that.
Who unfortunately passed away, but she also was a writer on BFG.
Oh, okay.
So
oh, wow.
Yeah, so
So
she
just
hung out
recently
with
passed away, or
2015,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
the age of 65. But on a lighter note, this movie actually is one of the first movies I can actually remember watching in the movie theater.
How old were you in 1982?
I was 5.
5. One of your first movies. Yeah.
Yes, one of I'm sure I saw a couple prior, but this one I actually remember going to the movies and something stuck out there. This is when I learned that I have that I'm soulless and have no emotions because
Nothing, huh?
I remember when E.T. died. I remember everybody in the theater crying, and I'm looking around, and I asked my mom. I actually asked her. I'm like, why is everybody crying? And she's like, because E.T. died. It's really sad. I'm like, but why are they crying? So I don't know if it was that I didn't get it. I don't know if that I realized that it was a movie. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if, my mom had prepped me.
It's like
Not-
seeing Santa Claus and going, that's just some dude in a beard.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, maybe, she, throughout my life made it known that these are movies and it's not real life, and so maybe I knew that it wasn't an actual thing called E.T. who actually died. Like, maybe that's why it didn't affect me as much. But yeah, I have vivid memories of, like, not understand why everybody was crying. I was like, man up, geez. Man up, Johnson. So,
What's funny, since you mentioned remembering what could be your very first movie in a theater, you got me thinking about how I was trying to figure out what my first movie was that I have memories of seeing. And I had memories of several different movies, so I had to kind of look up to see which one came out first. And I found out that the very first movie that I have memories of seeing, and this happened to be at a drive-in, is The Godfather. And that came out when I was like 5 years old. So my parents took me to see The Godfather at the drive-in when I was 5.
That's awesome.
Tim, your memories of E.T.?
I have very specific memories of this movie. For some reason, it was summer, and nobody else, and none of my other siblings were home. And my mom had been turned off by Raiders of the Lost Ark. I remember going to see that with my mom and dad. And my mom was like, "Okay, that's it. I'm not going to see anymore."
What was her complaint?
Steven
Too
Spielberg.
too violent, or
I
I mean, I
yeah,
know the ending is a little over the top, but
yeah, probably that, and the snakes and stuff.
I
So
hate snakes.
so I don't know if I had to like hard sell her on going to see ET or what, but I just remember going to see it and them like loving it. But I did not cry either because I had to pee so bad. I remember like sitting there because I didn't want to miss the movie anything because it was getting toward the end. So I just remember like sitting there. So
just
I
holding
think that kept me from crying anyway.
it.
But
Maybe you should have cried to get some liquid out.
yeah, I don't know, maybe, but
Hilarious.
but yeah, but yeah, I loved ET, and I actually went and saw it when it was re-released with the stuff that he had done to it. What 10 years later? Or
Yeah, I
whatever,
wasn't
and
a big fan of the digital re-release.
I
where
wasn't
they
either,
Replaced guns with walkie-talkies
Yeah.
and added some
Oh.
CGI ET moments, which I wasn't a big fan of.
Right, exactly. They CGI'd his pupils and
Yeah.
everything, which I mean, that was fine, but
Yeah, give me the original.
yeah, there was really no reason to do that. I don't think for him to like toy with it.
Did
But
you know in some of the scenes where you see ET like kind of wobbling side to side, do you know there was actually a person in a costume for that? It was a woman with no legs, so her arms were ET's feet,
mhm.
and she would kind of.
I didn't know that. And the
rock
reason
side to
that I
side.
know that, I just recently, I think, saw that because I was watching a documentary about a movie that has nothing to do with Steven Spielberg, but Silent Running.
Mhm.
And I think she was one of the actors that were in one of the
robot
robots
suits.
in Silent Running, too.
Wow, interesting.
I actually also remember like this movie is just iconic in so many different ways that I'm sure it put Reese Pieces on the map. Like
Yeah.
pop culture, like
Eminem.
Totally, because M&M's
Yeah,
didn't
they
want
turned it down,
Yeah.
so they went to Reese's Pieces,
And
and
then,
their sales went through the roof.
but I remember that my aunt actually made me an ET costume for Halloween, like handmade, sewed this god awful looking ET
Ouch.
costume. I might have to dig up a
Ouch.
picture,
I
but
gotta see that.
yeah,
That's
these
awesome.
big nasty. It was yeah, good times, good times.
Now, the amazing thing about Steven Spielberg's career is not only did he direct iconic movies, but he made other iconic movies possible by either executive producing or maybe writing. Here's a couple of movies that he had a hand in. He was producer and writer on Poltergeist. He directed the Kick the Can segment of the Twilight Zone movie.
Awesome.
He was executive producer on Gremlins. Of course, he went back to Indiana Jones with Temple of Doom, Color Purple, which I never saw, by the way.
What?
I've never seen
What?
I never saw
I never
Color
either.
Purple.
Oh my god, come on.
Yeah, I know. I
Racist.
know. He was executive producer and writer on The Goonies, one of the most influential movies of all time. He made Back to the Future possible. He was executive producer on Back to the Future, and it might not have ever happened if he didn't have the vision where he got it. The movie had been taken to other movie studios, and they just didn't get it. Disney was like, we can't have a guy fall in love with his mom, and everybody turned it down. And Spielberg saw the potential. I think he produced it through Amblin, and then it was distributed by Universal and became the hit that we know and love today. So thank you, Steven Spielberg, for that. He was executive producer on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, one of my all-time favorite movies, top 10 favorite movies of all time. And we'll never see another movie like that again. And so then let's jump ahead a little bit to Jurassic Park. 1993, Jurassic Park came out, and I had read the novel twice, Michael Crichton's novel. I just absolutely loved the movie, or the book. Read it twice, and then they announced Steven Spielberg was going to direct it, and I got excited about it, but I was skeptical. I was like, how are they going to pull off these dinosaurs? You know, stop motion was awful. Stop motion had kind of hit its limits. Even in like The Empire Strikes Back, when they used stop motion on the Tauntauns and stuff, they still looked pretty terrible. So I'm thinking if they're going to use stop motion
Blasphemy.
animation, what's that?
Blasphemy.
No, I just wasn't a fan of stop motion animation unless you were watching, like, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or something. So I was very skeptical. And then I remember seeing the very first trailer for Jurassic Park. And when I saw what they had done, my jaw hung open. I was like, oh my God, it looked like they filmed real dinosaurs. And Jurassic Park changed everything. The computer animation that they used to depict the dinosaurs changed movies. Now you could argue that it was for the better, or you can argue that it was for the worse because now movies are like 99% CGI. But man, at the time it was revolutionary, and I was amazed that they pulled off what they pulled off. Now, people criticize Jurassic Park as far as the storyline goes. There's not much to it. It's like a video game. The characters are trying to get from point A to point B, and they're dodging obstacles along the way. But I don't care. I love Jurassic Park. I love everything about it. I think it's one of the most influential movies of the modern era, and I think one of the greatest movies ever made. Ryan, your thoughts on Jurassic Park?
Um, I first want to stop and say that I'm mad that you skipped all the way to 93 and just totally disregarded Hook because I wanted to say Bangaree and Rufio. But I'll concede. Now Jurassic Park, I really liked it. I didn't go crazy over it. It's not one that I watched a whole bunch repeatedly. It was good the first couple times I saw it. Loved Jeff Goldblum. So I thought he was, great in it. Of course, visually it was pretty amazing. I definitely was into that. Um, the T-Rex, had those iconic moments like when they flashed the eye and the
The
people.
pupil. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, those are definitely groundbreaking, really awesome things to see for sure. And they again have held up and been replicated in many different things. So overall, I really enjoyed the movie, but it's not one that I would put in my top, 10 all time. But it's got some cool little things about it. And like for instance, and things that would never happen now because of CGI, oddly enough, but like, the dinosaur, when the T-Rex steps and the ripple in the water
Oh
was a
yeah,
really big thing.
yeah.
They couldn't figure out how to do that. So what they ended up doing was they took a bass guitar string and strung it underneath the car, and somebody was plucking it underneath the car to get the ripples in the water.
Yeah.
So the creativity of things back then and compared to now where they would just computer animate it. So
And the interesting thing is, I found out later, like years later, that there were moments in Jurassic Park that were CGI that fooled me. Like when the T Rex is chasing the Jeep and they drive under a fallen tree and the T Rex kind of crashes through the tree. The tree itself was CGI. And so I was like fooled by some of the CGI effects in Jurassic Park, where today everything to me kind of looks CGI and it looks kind of fake to me. But man,
yeah,
Jurassic Park
a
was
lot of times.
groundbreaking. Tim, what was your reaction to Jurassic Park? I know it wasn't Star Wars, but
Yeah, no Star Wars. And I, like you, had read the book a couple years before the movie even got talked about, and I think I might have read it a couple times, like you. Um, so overall, I hate to say this, but I was disappointed with it.
well, only
Um,
because they left a lot out, and
yeah,
I think it
like
was for budgetary
the whole
reasons.
meat
Yeah,
of the book they left out. The ending was, I mean, I can understand that. I mean, to me, they had to dumb it down, or it was dumbed down.
right.
It was geared more towards a younger audience.
Hmm.
And but I mean, as far as the CGI went and everything, I mean, that was fantastic. I mean, groundbreaking, of course. Uh, the dinosaurs were cool and everything, but yeah, I mean, like Ryan, I mean, I think I saw it at the theater, and then I saw it again at the drive-in because I was seeing Army of Darkness, and I think that was it. Um, I don't even know if I own it. I
Wow.
just not that I have anything against it, but it's just I don't know. It was great for what it was, but going back to the CGI, I mean CGI has come such a long way. I mean I don't agree with you on a lot of stuff now. I mean I think CGI has come so far that a lot of times you can't tell.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, we talked about it before. Like,
Unless it's Spider-Man, then you can tell.
well, yeah, I mean,
Well, when it comes to
some,
human beings, they still
right, they
haven't
still
nailed
haven't nailed
human
that,
beings right.
and
They
some of them,
never get that right.
right,
I don't
and
know
some
why.
of the movement sometimes, but I mean, Jurassic Park was way ahead of everybody else as far as CGI.
Yeah.
I mean, it took everybody else a long time to finally like catch up. I mean, it was really bad, I thought, in other stuff, not in Jurassic Park,
Right.
but in other movies, it was
yeah.
just like it looked like a cartoon.
Right. Now, I
And
do
it
have to
makes-
admit, having read the book, the ending made me cringe when the T-Rex comes in and saves the day.
Yep.
One of the things I loved about the book is that man was forced to try to outwit these beasts. And that was a big part of the book is trying to outsmart them and defeat these creatures. And so to have the T-Rex come in and the banner falls and stands there and strikes a pose, I was like, oh, come on. And then they tried
I
to
know.
incorporate some of the elements from the books into the sequels, and the sequels were terrible. I mean, I can
Awful.
honestly say, and I hate
I don't even-
saying this,
I don't
I
even think I've
hate the
seen-
sequels.
I don't even
Hate
think
the
I've bothered
sequels.
to see them
It's weird for me
besides
to say
Jurassic World.
that
which
I hate
love,
a Steven
but-
Spielberg movie.
I didn't
Yeah.
see 3. I hated 2.
They're
But-
awful.
But doesn't it seem like they're also now like in the new ones making the T-Rex the hero? And
Oh, yeah.
like,
Yes.
Yeah, and even in
totally.
the
And
trailer
that's-
for the new one coming out, there's a scene where the
Right.
T-Rex is the hero again.
right.
So
That's
makes
what I
me
was thinking of. Yeah.
roll my eyes.
But he was not. At least I don't remember him being the hero in the book.
No, not in the book. No, that's what made me cringe.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah, I
you
think I
know,
was the
he
same
was a
way.
menace. He
That
was a
was-
monster in the
Yeah,
book.
that was
not the
another reason
hero.
why at the end I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, same
And
thing.
again, I think they're catering to kids to make the
Yeah.
T-Rex the hero.
Oh yeah, totally. They
Yeah,
had to sell like
you have to sell
toys.
exactly.
And-
Exactly.
So then immediately after Jurassic Park, Spielberg begins his kind of historic epic period, starting with Schindler's List in 1993. Now, I have to admit, I've seen this movie once, and I've never seen it again. And it has nothing to do with whether or not I like the movie or not. I absolutely love the movie. I think it deserved all the praise it got, but it's too painful for me to watch. It's a very difficult movie to sit there and watch on a rainy Sunday afternoon. It's very, very difficult to watch. So even though I think it deserves all the accolades it got, it doesn't compare to the other Spielberg movies that I can watch over and over and over and again and again and again. Schindler's List is a tough movie to watch, but a great movie. What are your memories of Schindler's List in the beginning of Spielberg's historic epic period?
It's a great comedy. Just kidding. This movie actually, I saw it in high school, and in class, and we had to get special permission. We had to sign, have permission slips to see it, and anybody that didn't want to see it was excused because it's a really I don't know what the word that I'm looking for, but accurate depiction.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely needed to be permission slipped and excused if you don't want to watch it.
Yeah.
I, like you, absolutely love this movie and absolutely have no desire to see it ever again.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of those just long lasting, impactful, just like can't believe that actually happened.
All right.
And I think they did some wonderful things in making the film, from the black and white and the girl in the coat with
The
the
red,
color.
yeah.
So a very well told story of a tragic event.
Yeah. I mean, they tried to make it uplifting by having Schindler save people, but still, it's
Right.
a bit of a downer, man.
Yeah, no, it didn't work.
Yeah,
It's all downer, but
Yeah, not the
very,
feel-good
very
movie.
well done.
Yeah. Tim, what are your memories
My
of Schindler's
memories
List?
are a little bit different, but very vivid, because my parents were staying with me at the time, and me and my girlfriend didn't get any alone time, so we went and saw it together, and we missed the whole movie because that was our alone time, and we made out like the whole time.
I think you're remembering an episode of
yeah, oops.
Seinfeld.
Oh yeah, that was Seinfeld. Because I've never seen Schindler's List. Oops.
Wow. All right. So then, we got to talk about this. So that was 1993. 1993.
Yes.
And then 1998, 5 years later, Saving Private Ryan comes out, and that's another movie that I have very vivid memories of seeing in the theater. And the main reason was the surround sound. I remember during the opening battle sequences, storming the shores of Normandy, um, it sounded and almost felt like bullets were whizzing around my head. Like I found myself ducking. Like, what the hell is going on? It was such an impactful moment. And I heard stories about World War II veterans having to get up and walk out. And not because they didn't like the movie, it's because they felt like they were back on the beach getting shot at. And they had to, it brought back painful memories and they had to walk out. What an amazing movie. Absolutely unforgettable. I've seen this movie a few times since, but again, it's another movie that's difficult because it's such a downer and the main characters get killed in this movie, which of course is the spoils of war. But yeah. So, what are your thoughts of Saving Private Ryan? What impact did it have on you?
Well, I know why Jimmy Kimmel hates Matt Damon. This movie, all right. So it took me a while to see it, not because I didn't want to. It's just one of those ones that kind of fell through the cracks. That opening scene is epic, historic, and amazing. You know, some of the best beginnings to a movie ever. But then they kind of lost it for me after that. Like it was good the rest of the way, but you know that was the climax right there, and then everything else kind of just downhill from there. So
Yeah.
you know they kind of shot their wad in the beginning there.
Tim?
I'm not a huge war movie fan, but I would say this is probably the best. I love Apocalypse Now, so right up there with Apocalypse Now. But my buddy had seen it, and he was like, "Hey, you got to go see this movie. I don't care. You know, I don't know if I was gonna see it or not. But we went and saw it. He'd already seen it, and I actually loved everything about it. But again, I don't think I've ever seen it again. I think I might have bought it on VHS, but probably never watched it again after the first time
Yeah.
that I saw it, just because. just because of what it is.
Right.
I don't want to. I mean, I was thinking about the ending, and it's like, do I really want to relive that? No.
Right.
Great movie though, but
Yeah.
just not something I want to watch in repeated viewings.
Well, now we're entering on my list here the period of Steven Spielberg's career where his work became less of an event. A lot of his movies were kind of hit or miss at this point. You either liked them or you didn't like them. And I mentioned a moment ago that the Jurassic Park movies that after the first one I absolutely hated. There were a couple movies that came out over the next decade or so that I just freaking hated. Just hated. And it's so shocking for me to say that about a Steven Spielberg movie. One of the movies that I turned off, I just couldn't even watch it to the end, was War of the Worlds. I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it on either DVD or cable or something. And sitting at home alone trying to watch War of the Worlds, I turned it off. I couldn't bear it. And then, of course, the other movie that everyone loves to bash, 2008's Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I mean, I remember the announcement that Spielberg was back and Indiana Jones was back, and there was an excitement level. And my God, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, if we were to do a podcast on the worst movies ever, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull might be at or near the top because of the expectations I had and the delivery. And I freaking hated Crystal Skull. Ryan?
I actually liked it.
What? Oh, Jesus Christ.
I liked it.
I need some water.
Careful. No, I did. I liked it. I didn't really care for the alien part towards the end there, but I don't know. It just kind of, it was Indiana Jones. It was still Indiana Jones. So
I just think Shia LaBeouf kind of ruined it for me a little bit too. But
he was supposed to be, the passing of the guard kind of thing.
His acting is like he's on crack or something. He's just too much energy for me.
Do it,
Tim. Help me out here.
I've seen a lot of bad movies in my day, and I have never wanted to walk out of one. until Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And as soon as the movie, I was with one of my ex-wives, and as soon as the movie got over, I like turned to her and she was like, "What did you think of that?" And I was like, "I thought it was horrid." And she was like, "I did too." I was like, "I would have walked out." And she's like, "I was gonna ask you like halfway through." She's like, "But I thought you were enjoying it." I'm like, "Oh no,
Yeah.
no, just horrid." Just
I think we should have a
awful.
movie night.
And
I can't ever watch that movie again. I couldn't do that to myself. That's like no. And prior to that, I thought the worst Indiana Jones movie was Temple of Doom. But by comparison, Temple of Doom is a masterpiece.
Citizen Kane
Yeah.
compared to that. You skipped over Minority Report. And
What are your thoughts on Minority Report? Because I thought it was entertaining. I didn't think it was necessarily a classic, but I thought it was
I
entertaining.
had an issue with it that I couldn't quite put my finger on during the whole movie. I liked it, but my issue with it was kind of the whole setup, because it was supposed to, if I remember it correctly, it couldn't stop. It couldn't catch crimes of passion. Is that what it was, or it could, or I can't remember what the whole thing, but the whole thing that they set up almost was what happened at the end, and it kind of went against what they had set up in the beginning. That's really my only issue with it. Other than that, I liked it.
I thought Minority Report made some remarkable predictions about the future. I mean, there were scenes where, Tom Cruise's character would walk into a store or whatever, and they'd be like, "Hello, Mr. So-and-so.
Oh, yeah.
We know that you like this product." Blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, geez, that's what's going on today. Like
Right.
with our smartphones can know what our shopping habits are.
Yeah.
And so they made some pretty awesome predictions in that
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like an action movie went, I really liked it. And they had the twist at the end. Right? Did you see it? Right?
I had no interest in this movie.
Okay.
And I just never really.
And I know you hated AI, but I actually like AI. I don't know. I just like it.
Yeah. Hate might be a strong word for AI. I just expected it to be a Steven Spielberg movie, and it wasn't.
But he was taking over a Kubrick movie.
Yeah.
Is the thing.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, Kubrick died and he hadn't finished it, and supposedly, I don't remember like the whole thing, but I think he might have already, before he died, wanted Steven Spielberg to finish it, or said that, if something happened to him, that he could finish it or whatever. But
Ryan, I hate to dwell on the negative, but are there any Spielberg movies you just flat out hated? What did you just couldn't tolerate? Am I alone
No.
on War of the Worlds? Like I just
Well,
survived-
no.
I
Here's
said-
the thing: is that there might be some that I hate, but I just never went to see them. That early 2000s, I had no interest in his movies. Like they just didn't appeal to me. It wasn't anything I wanted to go see, so I didn't even give it a chance for me to hate it.
Mhm.
War of the Worlds being one of them. Now at this time I was working at the movie theater, so I caught clips here and there. Walking into the theaters because it's what you do. And it didn't make me want to go see a movie. So
I saw War of the Worlds. I want to say I might have saw it at the drive-in, but yeah, it was just like Dakota Fanning. It was just like one long scream.
Oh, is it,
That
was,
home.
and that was
thing.
that's kind of it reminds me of Temple of Doom, where Steven Spielberg's future wife. Can you recall the actress's name in Temple of Doom? The blonde lady.
No, I cannot.
Brian, you'll have to look this up. But it was kind of the same thing. Like, I don't know if it's a Steven Spielberg thing or what, but in Temple of Doom, she just like screamed the entire time, and you could only take so much of that. And the same thing happened in
you're right,
War of the
'cause
Worlds.
I remember like rewatching it, and I caught that, and I was like, "Oh my god, yeah."
Kate Capshaw, is that her name?
I'm getting
I think
That
it's
sounds.
Kate.
That
I think it's
sounds.
Kate Capshaw.
That sounds correct.
But yeah, you could only take so much of somebody screaming for long periods of time, and that's one of the main reasons I had to turn off War of the Worlds.
Depends on what kind of screaming.
Depends on what kind of movie. With a few minutes we have left in the podcast, let's. I want to talk about Lincoln. Came out in 2012. I've always been a big Lincoln fan, and having Steven Spielberg's name attached to this movie was exciting for me. I saw it in the theater, and I felt like I was time traveling. I thought Daniel Day-Lewis absolutely nailed Lincoln. Not that he had ever been filmed or anything, but I think he captured what I imagined Lincoln would look like and sound like and move like, and it deserved all the accolades that it got. I can't remember if it won Best Picture or not. I don't recall if it won that year. I seem to recall that maybe it got beat by something, but Lincoln
We'll have to
is
go refer to our Oscar
our
podcast.
Oscar, yeah. So I love Lincoln. I liked Bridge of Spies. I wasn't blown away by Bridge of Spies. Tom Hanks was likable in it as usual. It was okay. Never saw BFG. Never saw The Post, and then really enjoyed Ready Player One. And then as far as future projects for Steven Spielberg, he's executive producing the new Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom movie. He is executive producing Bumblebee, the movie, a spinoff of the Transformers franchise.
Let it die.
And then he has a horror movie coming out called The Turning, which I don't know much about. So he has some stuff coming out, nothing that I'm aware of that he's directing, but he's executive producing these upcoming movies. So with the last few minutes, what are your thoughts on Spielberg's most recent works?
Well, first, I just want to say that 2012 Best Picture was The Artist,
Okay,
but Daniel Day won Best Actor.
for Lincoln. Okay.
And then, yes, you were right. It was that Kate
Capshaw.
Capshaw.
Yep.
Just to throw that out there because we left people hanging, the 4 people that listen. And then what was the question?
His recent stuff, Lincoln, Bridge of Spies. Did you see BFG? I never got around to seeing BFG.
Nothing jumped out as being epic, must see, have to go watch it. Kind of, I don't know, phoning it in.
Yeah. I mean, like The Post, when you hear that Spielberg directed it and it had some of the most amazing actors in it, but it generated no ripples. It was pretty much ignored at the Oscars. What the heck went wrong with The Post? Now, I never
There
saw
was
it. But
nobody
I
under
had
the
no
thing
interest.
plucking the guitar string to make the ripple sound.
Right. Exactly. So I don't know.
Stupid CGI.
I'm hoping Ready Player One is successful, and I hope that it'll prompt Spielberg to get more into the fantasy realm. I mean, in my opinion, he's the most influential director of my lifetime, and I probably can say he's the greatest director of my lifetime. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And due to Ready Player One, I will say that he at least has not lost it like a lot of like George Lucas.
Oh, right.
So that was refreshing to me because since Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I hadn't seen any of his movies besides Adventures of Tintin, and that was just okay.
It was long.
Up until Ready Player One, I missed like 10 years of his movies pretty much.
Tintin felt long anyways.
And yeah, it was long, and I was at one point I was like, "What is going on?" It was just kind of like a lot of stuff going on, and
Well, War Horse, what about that?
I
Never
wanted to
saw
see
it.
that. Never got around to seeing that. I mean,
I didn't see it
planned on
either,
seeing
but
most of those, but I never did.
I heard really good things about it, but I never
Yeah.
saw it either.
I miss those days of the Spielberg event picture, and I would love for this new generation of film lovers
But
to
there's so many
experience
movies.
that.
I mean, okay. I mean, go back to the '80s. I mean, it was an event when a movie came out, and the movie would be in the theater for 6 months. I mean, now, like, if a movie doesn't make so much money, it's out of there in a week and a half or 2 weeks. I mean,
And you can
it's just a different thing. I mean, how many great directors are there now? I mean, it's
Right.
just
and now the
he's kinda
home
lost in the shuffle.
theaters are so almost better, and you don't got to worry about people on their cell phones, and
Yeah.
and you can get these movies. You could get Jumanji. You could rent Jumanji at home while it was still in the theater. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
we live
agree
in a
with you.
different time.
I think I think the
Yeah.
epic movie going experiences.
It's a bygone era.
It is, and I'm glad to have experienced the theater going experience in
definitely.
the 70s and
Damn
80s.
kids.
It was a great, great time to be a kid and grow up in the movie theater. And
my
with
lawn.
that, we pretty much have to wrap up this podcast talking about what I feel is the greatest director of my lifetime. We hope you enjoyed our discussion, and we'll see you again soon on Movies for Dumb Guys.